As long ago as I care to remember, I had a part-time job in a video game shop. For a teenager it was a pretty cool place to work, but there was a blessing and a curse to this job. On one hand, I had a lucrative staff discount at my disposal. On the other, at the end of every weekend when I got paid, I would immediately spend all the money I just earned on computer games. It was around this time that the iconic Bullfrog game Theme Park was released, a game that I'd been waiting for months. It was delayed and delayed, but in the end, it didn't disappoint. Today we have phenomenal theme park simulation games at our disposal, such as, of course, Planet Coaster, but it's not the first computer game about theme parks. In this episode, we're going to take a brief look at the history of theme park video games.
This is the system chosen 2-to-1 over Atari and Intellivision for real arcade gameplay.
Fantastic!
Presenting the revolutionary Vectrex arcade system. Ordinary home video games can't match the laser-sharp visual effects of Vectrex, because only Vectrex has a real arcade screen built in. No TV set needed, so every Vectrex cartridge gives you real arcade gameplay that others can't. Vectrex, it stands alone.
It all started in 1983. One of the first ever games to feature roller coasters was on the Vectrex. By the way, it was a pretty innovative system for its day. It featured add-on technology which was kind of a precursor to the virtual reality systems of today. The object of Crazy Coaster 3D was to move your body and try and stay in your seat. Raise the arms of the passenger for extra points, but if you raised them at the wrong time, you fell to your doom. It was a pretty dark game, really. In the mid-80s, the video game industry began to recover from a slump. The toy companies dabbling in games had mostly moved over to let the computer companies into the marketplace. Rollercoaster first appeared on one of my favourite platforms, the ZX Spectrum, in 1985. It was a platform-based puzzler game that would take you all over a theme park to collect bags of money. These bags were of course placed precariously around the rides and attractions. Rollercoaster was also available on the Amstrad CPC and the Commodore 64. As far as I know, the only other game released in the 80s was Rollercoaster Rumbler. It was a pretty crazy game which mounted a machine gun on the front of a roller coaster. Apart from making the most of the Atari ST's sound capabilities, it didn't really offer too much else. By the early 90s, the possibility of a true theme park simulation game began to become a reality. In 1993 there was Coaster. Produced by the Walt Disney Computer Software Company, it was released for the PC. It never really felt like a properly finished game, and strangely, any Disney rides that featured in the game seemed to have a better rating than any other ride. By 1996, Computer Gaming World magazine listed it at number 31 on a list of the worst video games of all time. It did, however, help pave the way for the theme park simulation games of today. And that brings us to 1994 and the release of Theme Park. The original theme park game by Bullfrog was a game that we'd been reading about for months. You've got to remember, this is a time before the internet was widely available. The only real source of information was from reading gaming magazines down the local shops. Bullfrog was a company set up by Peter Molyneux, famous for helping to bring to market games such as the award-winning Populous. Peter had become fascinated with theme parks and was sparked into action after trips to a few theme parks, including Alton Towers in the UK. Peter and his team even spoke to owners of major parks to learn about how they extracted every last penny from their guests. At the time, the introduction to the game alone when you first installed it was a cut above anything the majority of us had ever seen before.
Dad, I'm really bored.
Hey, you there! Good day to you. Please don't be afraid. I'm the advisor, and I'm here to take you to a magical land. You first, lad. Friends can come too. And even grown-ups. Oh, I almost forgot. You too. Roll up, roll up.
I think the coolest thing about Theme Park is how much more there was to it. Under the hood it was a business sim, but a very, very good one. The level and detail and customization of how you ran each ride and shop made it a fun and immersive experience. Two things that every great game needs. It remains one of my favourite games of all time. Bullfrog should have been paying me. I remember setting up demonstration machines in the shop that I worked in, every single one of them with a copy of Theme Park, and I'd spend hours trying to convince any customer who walked in to buy a copy of the game Theme Park. It was ported to most of the major consoles and machines of the day. What its fans really wanted was a great sequel. Unfortunately, they got Theme Park World instead, also known as Sim Theme Park and Theme Park Rollercoaster. It was a pretty fun game and introduced some nice new features. The ability to walk around your own park was pretty cool, and as great as it was to have a sequel to Theme Park, you just kind of felt yourself wanting to play the old game. Later followed Theme Park Inc., which was a better balance of the two previous games, but still didn't really live up to the competition that was now coming into the market.
Hey, my kids lost their lunch on that roller coaster you built.
I thought they'd like the 17 loop-de-loop.
Introducing Rollercoaster Tycoon. Build the amusement park of your dreams with rides and coasters that'll blow your mind.
There's plenty to eat in your park, but where are your bathrooms?
Gee, I knew I forgot something. Place bathrooms and concession stands to keep your customers happy.
I doubled the bathrooms, built some incredible new roller coaster rides, and lowered ticket prices. Tourists.
Get on Rollercoaster Tycoon, now for PC CD-ROM.
Where perhaps the sequels to Theme Park fell down is that they ignored too much of the competition, and that competition came in the form of Rollercoaster Tycoon. Rollercoaster Tycoon was released in 1999 and had been developed by Chris Sawyer, the man behind a game called Transport Tycoon, which had become a classic of the now famous Tycoon series. Rollercoaster Tycoon was widely regarded as a pretty amazing game, and some very cool expansion packs quickly followed. And a sequel in 2002, which came in for a little bit of criticism for not taking the game on that far. 2 more expansion packs were released, and by 2004, Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 was released. One thing I have to admire about the Rollercoaster Tycoon franchise is some of their marketing campaigns.
That's the kind of park Larry built. What kind will you build? Give it a try with Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, where you can run your own sick amusement park, right into the ground if you want. It's one wild ride you can't get off. Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. Rated E for everyone.
Needless to say, that advert was pulled from television screens quite quickly. The game was a huge commercial success, and more fantastic expansion packs followed. Finally, after a 12-year wait for a new PC version of Rollercoaster Tycoon, Rollercoaster Tycoon World was released in 2016. Although showing great promise in development, the game was delayed and is generally still seen to have too many bugs and not enough customizable options. It's such a shame really for the Rollercoaster Tycoon series that after all this time of waiting for a next generation theme park simulation game, what the fans really wanted, well it was this. More about that later. Before we go any further, let's go back. You see, between all these sequels to Theme Park and Rollercoaster Tycoon, there were a few spin-offs and other releases. In 1999, Coasterworks, known as Jet Coaster Dream in Japan, hit one of the most underrated consoles of all time, the Sega Dreamcast. The original game was released globally, but its sequel was only released in Japan. The worst thing about Coasterworks were the sound effect screams when you tested the roller coasters. '" 2001 was a landmark year for roller coaster simulation. A German programmer called Olli Lang led a team of fellow programmers and artists to develop and build a software package called No Limits. The final package, created for Microsoft Windows and Mac, came in two parts. Part 1, a No Limits editor and simulator, and then another application called Terraformer was also available. This incredible software allows a user near infinite possibilities in creating a coaster, and although never marketed as a game, it's been purchased by many hardcore gamers and theme park enthusiasts alike. Roller coaster manufacturers such as Intamin, Vekoma, Mack and Gerstlauer are all purported to use No Limits to show prospective clients such as major amusement parks new ideas for rides and attractions. A sequel with a few additional features and improved graphics was released in January 2014. A copycat piece of software called Hyperrails was also released, but was not worth purchasing if you already had a copy of No Limits, and if you had purchased it, you probably wished that you'd purchased No Limits. Disney were back in 2001 with Ultimate Ride for Windows. They also launched a website which encouraged users to send in designs. These were then rated and awards were given out to the best designs. 2 new versions of the game were released in 2002, but the website eventually closed in 2003. PlayStation 2 users got Rollercoaster World, which wasn't really a very polished product and very hard to play. Greatest Coasters 3D appeared on Windows, and console-based game Thrilville and its sequel Off the Rails provided some excellent respite and entertainment in 2006. It had some echoes of the original theme park series, and they were great games if you wanted to play Rollercoaster Tycoon without all the hassle of actually being a Rollercoaster Tycoon. And that brings me to a game that had somehow completely passed me by until now.
Bouw en ontwerp je eigen Efteling attractiepark en bezorg jouw bezoekers een onvergetelijke dag. Beleef het op jouw PC met de Efteling Tycoon. Nu bij iPlaza en Bart Smit.
Yes, there is a whole Tycoon game based around the historic Dutch park Efteling. It's actually pretty good. Air Coaster in 2009 was one of the first mobile games, and it was followed by Crazy Coaster, also for mobile platforms. Crazy Coaster, we were right back where we started. After all this time of waiting, as a theme park enthusiast and video game addict, nothing had ever really come close to the original theme park game or the Rollercoaster Tycoon games and their sequels. Finally, that changed with the release of Planet Coaster. It's rightfully taken its place as the king of theme park simulation games. Its creators and players share some amazing talent, and through a rigorous development stage emerged a very slick and immersive experience. Released by Frontier, who brought us Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, part of that series that took the original theme park game and made it even better. The game's been a huge success, selling over 1 million copies, and was nominated for 5 awards at the 2017 Video Game BAFTAs. It's brought huge communities of people together online. Expansion packs are already being released, and the future looks pretty bright for anyone with a love of theme park based video games. So from those early pioneers to the original theme park game that I'd waited so long for, and to the much adored Planet Coaster, that was a brief history of the games that tried to let us live out some of our wildest dreams. Although some of these old games might look a bit old hat and clunky, I'd encourage anyone to go back and take a look at some of these games, where the principles at least have often remained roughly the same. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed what you've seen, then please do subscribe, and I will see you next time on Theme Park World Tour.